There's a battle going on inside Israel. Citizens fighting against their own government's policy to escalate the war in Gaza. They've been trying to block roads and cause disruption to daily life today. It's a nationwide strike in support of the families of hostages still held captive by Hamas.
Last week we decided to call to everyone in Israel, to all the citizens, to stop, take a day and stop all the country in one saying, please release the hostages, bring them home and stop the war.
Today she had the support of the Wonder Woman actor Gal Gadot. But many in Israel fear that the total victory being pursued by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will inevitably mean that the 50 remaining hostages, living and dead, will never return home.
Those who are calling today for an end to the war without defeating Hamas are not only hardening Hamas's position and delaying the release of our hostages, they are also ensuring that the horrors of October the 7th will repeat themselves over and over again.
More international aid was dropped around Gaza City today. It's nowhere near enough to satisfy the demand of the thousands who remain amid the ruins. They're running out of places to run to. As Israeli defense forces prepare to take control of the city, more tents are being sent into Gaza to accommodate those who face being displaced again. This woman says they've had enough. There is no safe place and begs for the war to end. The plight of Palestinians is of little concern to Israelis whose focus is on the safety of their hostages. But the fate of everyone inside Gaza is inextricably intertwined.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Makakudash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful elect. This is your brother Dawadah from the Men of Valor Campaign, Greenville, South Carolina, coming back with another video on sincerity and in truth, Lord willing, it can be edifying. And as you saw here, all right, there's been major protests going on in the state of Israel. All right, and if you were listening carefully, all right, it wasn't the same type of protest that they're doing here, you know, in other places around the world about freeing Palestine and whatnot, you know, and in support of Gaza. You know, these Israelis were basically calling for an end of the war and to release the hostages that are still held by Hamas. All right, which, you know, there has been way more people that have perished on the side of the Palestinians than there have been on the side of the Israelis. Okay, but nonetheless, all right, we bring out, you know, the news. You know, we cover things like this and we filter it through prophecy and through, you know, the scriptures. And, you know, right now we're seeing more uproars of the people of in the world. All right, the Lord didn't say necessarily why there will be, you know, there will be uproars. All right, other than the fact that, like the scriptures say, when the let's grab it real quick. I got Matthew 12 pulled up. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse 2, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. So, you know, that tells you right there that, you know, the wicked is in authority. All right. The world is mourning. All right. Back in May, you know, you had May Day protests and everybody was protesting Trump. All right. You got, you know, these protests going on in Israel. You know, you got protests going on, you know, here in America over ICE and whatnot. And ultimately, it's because the wicked is in authority, all right? Whether they're protesting this or protesting that or this leader or that leader, either way, they're protesting, okay? When the righteous are in authority, the people are going to rejoice. You know, yeah, these nations are going to be in captivity, but they'll have clean air, clean water, you know, clean food, all right? Order will be established. The earth will be replenished, okay? When this devil gets taken out of power. So we're seeing that, you know, these... the wicked, all right, because those that are occupying the state of Israel, which is the Lord's land, you know, a portion of it, all right, this land is bigger than just that particular state. The scriptures say that they would take the Lord's land into their possession with the joy of all their heart. All right. And the Lord said he would have war with Amalek from generation to generation. And Amalek is the chief house of Edom. All right. And the Edomites are the so-called white race. So we're seeing the wicked, okay, turn against one another, you know, from a neighbor standpoint, maybe political party standpoint, to countries, to nations, you know, and kingdoms. All right. So we're seeing, once again, prophecy unfold. And in 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter, the Lord said, when thou shalt see earthquakes and uproars of the people of the world, the Lord spoke of these things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. All right. So again, we're seeing, you know, these different things happening, and we're filtering it through prophecy. We're hearing the wars and rumors of wars, all right, uproars of the people, you know, all type of stuff happening. All right, Trump, all right, that cruel Lord. All right, he's supposed to be meeting, you know, with Zelensky and Europeans. He just met with Putin on Friday, and they're trying to end this Ukraine war. And even if they do wrap this war up, you know, and there's land swaps and stuff, the main war that's going to go down will be in the Valley of Yehoshaphat anyway, you know, according to prophecy. So, but the tensions between Russia and the West are, you know, as high as intense as ever. You know, especially since the Soviet, you know, old Soviet Russia. All right, the Lord has put that spirit back in them. All right, but Esau is divided. All right, let's get this. This is Matthew chapter 12 and verse 25. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. See? You know, so the Lord dropped that gem. So we filter that through what we're seeing now. And America's definitely divided. You know, the world power structure is divided. Right? And these Israelis are even divided, you know, and uprising against their government. Okay? So how can their kingdom stand? It won't have longevity. It's going to have an end. You know, and we know according to prophecy, another thing, you know, another angle with this is, you know, we've been hearing reports that, you know, they're gonna, you know, there was a ceasefire with Iran. You know, it was a 12-day war or whatever. You know, and they actually took heavy damages. Israel did. All right, but now they've been replenished. All right, they're ready for another offensive, and they have America on their side. So they're saying, you know, another attack on Iran could be very soon. So that's something to look out for. All right. We see how that boiled over very quickly a month or two ago. All right. And now you also have Iran, who is going to be clicked up with Russia and China, man. So, you know, you have your pretext for World War III in the midst. And we know, according to prophecy, the least of the flock shall draw them out. The least of the flock are these Israelis, man. Okay. That's them. You know, so a lot of things happening with the Lord's land. And, you know, and the Lord said in the fire of his jealousy, you know, let's grab it real quick. All right, because they want to take that, you know, they're not going to stop the war. They're not, you know, it's not about the hostages. It's about that land. They have a greater Israel plan, you know, and you got the Abraham Accords and whatnot that has these, because if they don't come in and fully conquer, you know, these other, you know, so-called Muslim nations or Arab nations, then they'll, you know, they're bribing them, and, you know, they're having, you know, trade deals and all type of stuff like that. Okay. But if you know, you have some of these nations like Iran, you know, like, you know, Lebanon and whatnot, that are completely against the Israelis and want them eradicated. So let's grab this. Let's see. This is Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 5. It says, therefore, thus said the Lord power, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea. And Idumea is Greek for Edom. And Edom, once again, is the so-called white race. All right. It says, which have appointed my land into their possession. What's the Lord's land? All right. The land of Israel. It says, with the joy of all their hearts, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. See, this devil is doing what he's always done. You know, and I know we mentioned it in our live stream yesterday. You know, this devil, this is nothing but, you know, modern day colonialism. All right, which that's how they came out and conquered the world when that seal was loosed off of them, to go and deceive the nations again for a short time. That was your Renaissance period. All right, and you had it through Great Britain, and imperial Great Britain. You had Denmark, Spain, these different places, European nations that went out and conquered the world. All right. That's what Esau was created to do. He was that red horse, and power was given unto him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. All right, not to give peace. All right, anytime they're talking about peace, they bring destruction. All right, they bring nothing but death and destruction and torment. Okay, and they want to get rid of the people of Gaza. They want that land. They want that oceanfront property. Even Trump got on them like, why would y'all give away oceanfront property, man? To show you they don't have any account for human life. They don't care, even if they act like they do. And these Israelis are the ones that play the victim. And now the world sees them as the devils that they are. And it's part of that wicked being revealed, man. All right. So we'll see what comes of this. I truly believe that, they're going to kickstart this war again, all right, because Netanyahu technically is a war criminal, all right? He's a war criminal, and they're not going to end the war because, just like in Ukraine, they might not end the war because it would mean having to get Zelensky ass out of there. I don't think they're going to get rid of Netanyahu. I think he's going to be, he is part of that least of the flock, man. That's going to draw these nations into World War III, okay? So not to make this video too long, all right, they're protesting. They were already, even before October 7, they were protesting. The state of Israel was on the verge of a civil war, okay? And then they brought that about so they could, continue with their plans to try to conquer the so-called Middle East. So we'll see what comes of this. Again, just wanted to bring out this information, and filter it through prophecy. And with that, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash, and double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well.